Okay, wow, 1 year on YouTube, 1 year of thinking about making videos, failing a lot, having a few successes, and overall just learning a ton about what it takes to run a very, unsuccessful YouTube channel. That being said, when I was first thinking about launching a channel on YouTube, I went and found a lot of best practices from really awesome creators. And I still think that that's incredibly valuable information, but a lot of times these people had over 1 million subscribers, or for me, really at the very least 100,000. And the reason for this is I thought that if I were to learn best practices, you might as well learn them from people who have walked the road that you want to go down. However, times are constantly changing on YouTube, and it's also really difficult because there are so many non-technical things that go into starting and running a YouTube channel that I figured I'd use this year mark as a way to check in and provide all of these like uncensored thoughts and strategic thoughts of how I'm viewing the platform. And that way, if you are considering getting started, you could take it now from someone who has not yet succeeded or may never succeed and just use this as a data point. I'm gonna group this into successes, failures, and learnings, but how we'll do it is we'll talk about successes and failures, and then I'll give you the learnings associated with each one. I am gonna try to organize this really cleanly in the description. So we'll cover a handful of topics today. They won't be really in any sort of order. So if you are interested in a high level overview, I'll tag everything in the description. And normally when I give people an option of starting with good or bad, people want to hear bad first. So why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about the biggest failures that I've noticed on YouTube for myself and see if we could take anything away from those that may help you if you're thinking about starting your own YouTube channel. The first thing that I want to talk about is a failure, but it's also a success, and it's my current subscriber count. I don't really know what I had as a goal for subscriber count after a year. I think it was probably closer to 1,000. So the fact that I'm only at like 240 subscribers, metrics would say that that's a failure. I'm also going to put it under success because I love that I have that many subscribers, and I get so excited when someone finds my content valuable enough to subscribe or they want to follow along. But I'm going to put this under failure right now just because if you were to grade me based on what my expectations were last year, I think that I fell short. Now, I have a better idea of what's realistic for after a year. And I think that through all these failures, you're going to see some missteps that I took that would have maybe helped get me to that 1,000 subscriber goal. But overall, I'm not ashamed of it. I think it hasn't been a huge waste of time or anything. And I'll talk about that more in a second, but it is the biggest clear first failure, which is just, I had a goal of probably about 1,000 subscribers and fell short. When we're talking about different factors that could have contributed to me falling short, I think the first one that I would recommend if you are starting out is to have a clear content strategy. And what I mean by that is when I first started, I knew I wanted to make more business focused content, and I knew I wanted videos to be somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. I think I wanted them to be 10 minutes each. What I didn't pay much attention to or give mind to is how often I would be posting. And originally I think I was doing every other week, and then I was doing every 3 weeks if I got busy with work. And then in December, I moved my content strategy over to focusing on shorts because that was getting so many more views from the algorithm and more subscribers. And my goal was subscribers. And then I came back to long form content because I realized that that was just all going stale and dead because the algorithm wasn't really picking it up or anything. And so you can hear me talk about this, but the bottom line is there was no clear content strategy that I could articulate easily. This needs to change for me, and this is going to change in year 2. Every week there needs to be one video, at least one video in long form content, unless you are going straight for shorts. So if you are thinking about getting started, the number one piece of advice I would give is think about what your content's going to look like, where you could post consistent content, whether it's long form or short form. Although I would advise you to go more long form content in the beginning. And I think the absolute minimum for this needs to be 1 time per week. This creates so many problems, especially if you're not ready for it. For me, it's difficult to come up with ideas each week. I do all of the script writing, filming, editing, and then I have clients that I work with full-time. So this is like more of a hobby, but to have to do this in order to give yourself any chance of success is really daunting. You could combat this by coming up with a bunch of ideas that you want to film, writing a bunch of scripts, even filming like, let's say 8 videos so you have them in the hopper and could take a week off or give yourself a little bit of a vacation. I'd like to do that, and I'm working toward doing that. It's just so hard to get ahead in this because the editing takes up so much time, the idea generation, and the script writing. And I will say script writing leads me to my next failure and learning, which is in order to succeed, I feel like you need to get really comfortable in front of the camera, and I was not doing that early on. I wrote scripts and tried to memorize them or read them line by line, which was great for getting videos done and having like a flow, but it was really bad when I got to editing because at that point I tried to match everything sequentially and it started to feel a little bit robotic, and the filming took me hours in the beginning because I was trying to nail all of these individual sentences. Once I moved away from that, it unlocked a ton of time for me. So a big failure in the beginning was relying heavily on reading scripts. And I think that the learning from that is get comfortable early on with just talking to the camera like this, because that will make your process so much easier as you record footage in the future. Another failure. This piggybacks on something earlier where I said launch content once a week. I haven't cracked any sort of formula. I still have huge misses, and you can look at my last video. That took me a lot of time to think about, film, edit, and it got like 15 views. So there are still things that I absolutely find ambiguous or confusing about YouTube's algorithm. When I say post one long form video every week, I'm thinking of what I'm gonna do in year 2, and that's my hypothesis, is just like that's what I need to do in order to put myself in a better position to succeed. And you can follow along and see if that's the case. But I also will say I have no idea what works best if you're just trying to grow subs. I mean, shorts really may be the way to go. And I was having a lot of success with shorts, but I eventually found that that was not a sustainable path to go down, and I needed to pivot back to the long form content and figured once a week is best. Last 2 failures that I want to talk about. One is, I don't know if there's any way to solve this, but just this feeling of ambiguity about the content that you're creating. And when you are on this time frame of trying to make a video every week, it gets hard to stay on track or stay consistent. And what I mean by that is when I was doing shorts, I was doing a video every day to see if I could get that to work. And I was doing explainer videos about why interest rates matter. I was doing guess the brand videos. I was doing like a bunch of different types of videos because my theory during year 1, and I do think that this was a success, was test everything and see if anything works. But that leads to some ambiguity. So even now when I sit down, I'm not fully confident on the type of videos that I'm trying to make. I know that I want them to be business related. I have a few learnings and successes I'll talk about in a second about how I would go about doing those videos. But generally there is a little bit of ambiguity of content, and I'm still searching for that. And it's really difficult to search for that while you're still on this timeline of coming up with 1 video a week. So my learnings or my advice to avoid this failure would be, if you can, think about exactly what your angle is in the beginning so that you can just focus on creating more and more and more of that content. And even though I came in knowing that I wanted to talk about business, it wasn't specific enough where I just have like tons of ideas that are all generally similar. I'm still searching and trying to perfect my voice and what I'm putting out there because I don't really have a good handle right now on what's working. And finally, and I think this is probably the biggest failure, is my return on investment from YouTube. I bought thousands of dollars in camera and lighting equipment, which I would recommend highly in the beginning because it just saves you time and you might as well put good stuff out there. But I'm spending hours and hours every week doing this stuff, and I have not gotten any sort of return on investment back. I mean, 250 subscribers is good, but this is a grind. And I love doing this because it's a hobby and it's fun and it mixes a bunch of interests for me. But if I were at all coming at this from a business side of things, that would be a huge failure. I mean, I have totally failed on that front. And I don't really know how I'm going to turn this around, but I'm also not really mad about it because I just like doing this. And so know that that will probably be a failure. And I guess my learning is if that's the angle that you're coming at YouTube from, then be prepared to fail or grind really hard. But if you don't care that much about it and you're doing it because you just like creating content and you want to get better and this is an outlet for you, then it's okay if you fail at that. And then final little technical things, just because I did like 7 or 8 videos that I absolutely can't watch anymore, keep the microphone close to your mouth. This took me so long to figure out. I thought that things sounded like reverby, and then I realized the microphone was like 4 feet away from me and it needs to be right here, real close to the mouth. And then the last learning on the equipment stuff, and I wouldn't put this in a failure or success, is originally I tried to make videos from my phone in order to see if this was a fad or not. And then I was gonna move to professional equipment. And I would say if you're truly interested in doing this and you think you're gonna do it for a year, go get that camera. And I don't know if I'm gonna be the only YouTuber or person to say something like that, because I know a lot of people are mindful of how expensive this stuff is, but it's an investment, or it's something for a hobby that you're gonna spend tons of hours doing. And it is so much more enjoyable for you to edit something that looks more professional than it is for you to edit something that you're not super proud of. And at the end of the day, for me, what was most successful about all of this was uploading something that I was proud of, something that I wanted to share. And that came from filming it on the right type of equipment and learning about lighting and learning about sound. And all of that stuff is really only unlocked from having a certain threshold. So I would say get a full frame camera, go for a decent lens, and you have to do this not as a fad, but knowing that you're going to give it a full year. And this is 100% not an investment that I would ever take back, even though I haven't made any money from YouTube. But the quality of content and how much content I've put out at that quality is just so much better because of this camera. And I have it now for year 2 and year 3 and whatnot. Okay, let's talk successes. And similar to failures, I want to start successes off with subscribers. I had no idea how hard it would be to get subscribers. I should have, because I don't subscribe to that many channels, but wow, is it really hard. And when I do get subscribers and you guys come on my channel and you leave me these really awesome comments about, I'm surprised he doesn't have more subscribers. I mean, I'm sure it feels like so little, but it is such a success to me because it makes me feel like I'm putting out content that, you know, someone finds useful and helpful. And that was one of the reasons why I'm doing this in the first place. And so when I talk about how none of this is generating any money, what I am getting the utility from or the happiness from is knowing that maybe a couple of you find this useful and insightful, and maybe I'm saving some of you time in the future. And that's what I loved about teaching, and that's what I'm loving about YouTube. So the success is I've gotten any subscribers and I've gotten some really nice comments. And another personal success is Ali Abdal subscribed. That was so freaking cool because I view him as one of the best YouTubers on the platform, and I'm really inspired by his stuff. So the fact that he did subscribe was awesome. So a lot of stuff there that just makes me feel good and makes me reinforces this idea that, hey, I could put stuff out there that people like. Another thing that I was not prepared for, which is really cool, is when I look at these view counts and they're relatively low, they're like in the low to mid 100 range. Some of them are in the teens. I don't realize that that's a person watching it. And oftentimes it's a person that might already know me or be in my network. And when I'm walking around my hometown or if I'm on LinkedIn, it is such a nice icebreaker, the fact that I'm making these videos, because people will be like, I saw your YouTube, or I saw you're doing YouTube. And it's just a way for people to connect. And I'll tell you, over the last year, I've gotten some really nice inbounds from people who I don't generally talk to, and it's been a great way to reestablish that connection. So if you're thinking about ways to, I don't know, put yourself out there, I don't think anything's really more vulnerable than starting a YouTube channel like this and just uploading videos with your thoughts, and people appreciate it. So that would be a success. The way that I've been able to interact with people that I normally wouldn't, because this channel gives them an excuse to talk to me about something. One success to counterbalance the failure that I mentioned earlier on like the subscriber front or the ROI front is I'm getting better at making these videos, more efficient. These videos are taking me a fraction of the time that they used to take me, and they've come with new skills. So the ability to edit in Adobe Premiere, the ability to bring some of that into my general day-to-day work has been awesome. And it's a product of just investing so much time doing this. I wouldn't say that I would go into making a YouTube channel just to learn Adobe Premiere. There are many other better, less time-consuming ways to do it. But when you do create a YouTube channel and you are editing your videos, you learn Premiere. You have to. Otherwise, you're spending more and more and more time editing. So the skill of creating content has been a nice secondary benefit that I am able to take with me and apply to many other things. And now I'm going to talk about my favorite success. And that is if you are proud of the content that you're putting out there and you do think that it's worthwhile, you're building an archive of it. And a year ago I had nothing. And now I have hours of videos online where even as my son grows up, we can watch them together and laugh at them. We can talk through them and all of this awesome stuff where I'm just proud of the archive that's been created. And I've been proud enough to push submit, and I'll be proud to share it in the future. And that's one of the main reasons that I decided to go in on YouTube instead of be an MBA professor or continue being an MBA professor. And it's because I was teaching so much and spending so much time, but at the end of it, the students left with all of these lessons and the relationships, and it was awesome and it was fulfilling, but there was no archive of that. I didn't really have anything to show for that. And so coming onto YouTube and being able to point to these different little lessons or tidbits or even things that I'll back at and think are stupid in the future, I love it. I've actually gone back and looked at some of the things that I've talked about in the past. Like when I talked about beating anxiety, I got into an anxious spell and went back and watched the anxiety playbook just to remember, when I wasn't anxious, how I was thinking about this and get reinforcement from that if I stay with the course, then I'll be less anxious. And it worked. So having these things in the back pocket to revisit, it's always just fun and neat. This last learning doesn't really fit into any success or failure box, but it's probably the biggest learning that I've had since I've started. And I'm just going to explain what happened, and I think you'll see where I'm coming from versus explaining what the learning actually is. When I first started, I knew I wanted to do business stuff. And so I would title my videos as, ways to 10x your business or things that were very business related. And that was valuable content. In fact, some of the most valuable content I think I put up in the beginning of my channel when the camera was worse and the filming was worse and the editing was worse. And I do think that the actual content there is incredibly valuable. Why you should quit your job. It's such a potentially life-changing framework. But not many people watch that sort of stuff, and it wasn't clickbaity. And I thought that I would be above that, I guess, or that I didn't want to clickbait. And that's generally true still. But what I did realize is there's like this pyramid of ways that you could present information. So take this video that I did a few weeks ago of Mr. Beast being worth $1 billion. That's a very clickbaity title. What I started out as for the concept was comparables. Then for comparables, I realized, we could probably do something interesting about Mr. Beast where we're using comparables. So it went from just explaining the concept to putting the concept into an interesting framework. And this goes for when I got Ali Abdaal to subscribe by creating a video about, lessons for growth and strategies for his channel. Those things are taking these neat business concepts that are valuable to understand and applying them in a way where people don't realize that they're learning this more dry or complex concept. They're learning through something they find interesting. And I liken it to putting cheese around a pill for a dog or peanut butter around a pill for a dog. It's just, that's what the clickbait needs to be. So if you are starting out your channel, don't clickbait and say something wrong just to get people to click because they're going to be pissed off. But if you could find a way to wrap this medicine in peanut butter, like why Tom Cruise is worth $1 billion or all this sort of stuff, then that could be the key to getting you more views. And that is one learning that I'm just discovering over the last couple months. And it is something that you're going to see a lot of in year 2. And I hope that that's, one of these golden tickets to get me more subscribers. And not that this is all about subscribers, but it is a metric that I'm using to see how I'm doing, watch time, click-through rates, subscribers. So that is the number one thing I would recommend in terms of how to think about your content. That's a lot for me. I've had a great time in year 1 with you all. It's been awesome getting your support and having you behind me in this journey. I really want to thank all of you who have been just super supportive over text messaging and commenting and emailing. I mean, that truly is what's keeping me going. And I think you heard a lot in the failure section that this is tough. It's a grind. I have failed a lot. I've spent a lot of time doing this. I have very little to show for it in terms of return, but I'm getting a ton of energy from people who are commenting and liking and telling me that this is useful. So thank you so much for support. It means a lot. And let's get ready for a big year 2. I've got a few ideas cooking, and I think, we'll just keep going and see if we can continue to improve video by video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you found this interesting, I would love if you joined, hit subscribe, and we can continue on this journey together. I'll see you in the next one.